You're listening to Coupled With, the podcast that helps you take the guesswork out of feeling seen, heard, and valued in your relationship. If you've ever felt stuck in the same arguments, struggled to stay connected, or wondered how to better communicate with your partner, you're in the right place. I'm Dr. Rachel Orlick, a couples therapist and coach, and together, we're going to make relationships make sense. Let's dive in. I'm bringing back one of the episodes that hit people the hardest. And honestly, it's one I keep returning to myself. If you are the one holding everything together, the appointments, the emotional temperature, the things nobody else seems to notice or track, this one is going to be for you. Not to validate doing more of it, but to help you understand why you can't seem to stop and what it's actually costing you. If this episode resonates, I'd love for you to leave a quick rating or review. It genuinely helps this show reach more people who need it. Like this one from a listener who wrote, "Still loving listening every week." I love that you're listening. Now let's get into it. If you're the one keeping every plate spinning in your relationship, you already know it's just a matter of time before it all comes crashing down. You're not just tracking bills and laundry, you're managing emotions, soothing tension, anticipating what could go wrong, and making sure nothing falls apart. While everyone else may think that you've just got it all handled, what you feel on the inside is bone-deep exhaustion that never fully lets up. This is the trap of overfunctioning. You get stuck in the role of manager, the fixer, the one who knows what needs to happen next. And on the outside, it looks like competence, even strength. People may praise you for being the rock. But on the inside, it feels like you're carrying the whole relationship on your back with no chance to rest. And that weight doesn't just wear out your body, it erodes your sense of closeness and joy. The hard truth is that overfunctioning doesn't save relationships. It slowly strangles them. The more you do, the less your partner feels needed. The more you anticipate, the less they initiate. And the cycle feeds on itself until you're so resentful for always being on, and they're totally checked out because they believe that nothing they do will ever actually measure up. Both of you end up lonelier than when you even started, even if life looks handled on the outside. Burnout from overfunctioning isn't just about being tired. It's about hitting the place where your nervous system is saying, "I can't keep this up." And your heart whispers, "I don't even want to try anymore." That's the moment partners hit the wall, where affection shifts to irritation and everything your partner does grates, and where the ick actually starts to take root. So that's what we're talking about today. Why overfunctioning feels like control in the moment, but actually leads to collapse over time. How childhood patterns set you up to actually become the fixer, and why burnout is one of the most dangerous places a relationship can land. Overfunctioning shows up in the small, constant ways you run your relationship like a second job. You're the one remembering appointments and planning meals and tracking finances and making sure that everyone else's needs are covered. You're also the one smoothing over tension, monitoring moods, and checking in so no one feels neglected. Most of the time, no one else even notices that it's happening. From the outside, it can look like generosity or strength. Friends may even say, "You're so good at holding everything together." But on the inside, it feels like a trap. The more you take on, the more the balance shifts. You become the project manager of your relationship while your partner slides into the role of passenger. That's not always because they're unwilling. It's because the system has trained them to expect that you're going to do it. And once that pattern sets in, it's incredibly hard to undo. And this isn't just about practical tasks. Overfunctioning shows up emotionally too. You anticipate your partner's reactions, soften your tone to prevent conflict, or even apologize first when you're not at fault. You run interference for their moods, trying to fix sadness, soothe frustration, or patch up every rupture before it gets too uncomfortable. And while that might look like care, it actually erases you. Because in all of that management, your needs rarely make it to the table. Over time, you don't just feel tired, you actually feel invisible. This brings me back to a time right after my son was born. And my husband was going through so much, not just being a new parent, but also we had some birth trauma and he was dealing with his own emotions. I took on everything around the house that I could. I got up early. I tried to take care of the baby so that he could take care of himself. And all I ended up doing was driving myself into the ground and feeling more alone than I'd ever felt before. And the thing is, my overfunctioning didn't stop after my husband and I figured out what it was like to be new parents and we were able to address our own traumas around that event. That overfunctioning is part of my survival blueprint, so it continues to show up periodically. Luckily, now we can name it so he can say, "You need to let me have my emotions," or, "Hey, you need to let me know that you need more help." And we can talk about it in a much different way. The cruel irony is that the more you overfunction, the less your partner has to function. You start carrying 150% of the load, which means that they start carrying less than half. Over time, you get really frustrated and they become really defensive. And both of you end up feeling disconnected. You're not just doing too much. You're doing both people's jobs. And eventually, burnout kicks the door down and takes the relationship with it. So the reframe that I want you to hold on to is that overfunctioning isn't a personal flaw. It's not proof that you're controlling or bossy or too much. Overfunctioning is just a strategy. It's your nervous system's way of managing anxiety. When you take on more than your share, you're not just keeping things organized. You're trying to create safety in a system that feels unpredictable. To quiet the part of you that believes chaos is always one step away. For many people, this starts in childhood. Maybe you grew up in a house where the adults weren't reliable and someone had to step in. Maybe you learned that the only way to avoid conflict was to anticipate everyone else's needs before they exploded. Or maybe you were praised for being the responsible one, the one kid that held it all together. And those roles don't disappear when you grow up. They follow you right into your adult relationships. And society doesn't help. Our culture actually rewards overfunctioning. which boggles my mind. You're called dependable and strong and the one that people can count on. And at work, you get promoted. And in families, it makes you the go-to person to help solve all the problems. But in relationships, it's actually a liability. Because what looks like strength on the outside is actually your nervous system saying that it doesn't feel safe enough to rest, play, or trust someone else to step in. So just to be clear, overfunctioning is not about competence. It's your survival. It's your nervous system screaming at you, I can't let go, or everything will fall apart. That strategy might have kept you afloat as a kid, but it's going to burn you out as an adult. The shift begins when you stop asking, why am I like this? And start asking, what is this pattern protecting me from? That's where the change begins. Not in shame, but in understanding what's going on underneath. So like I said, overfunctioning is a survival strategy. When anxiety rises in your relationship, your body is going to look for a way to calm it down. For some people, that means pulling away. For others, it means freezing. But for overfunctioners, the instinct is to do more. If I fix it, plan it, manage it, then maybe I'll start to feel safe. The tricky part is that doing more does work, but only for the moment. You get a quick hit of relief. The bill is paid, the mood is smoothed over, the thing no one else remembered gets done. And for about 10 minutes, the anxiety quiets down. But then it comes back even louder, convincing you that if you just take one more thing, you'll finally be able to relax. You'll finally feel connected. Your partner will have room for you. They'll accept you. They'll love you. They'll cherish you. They'll do more then. From an attachment perspective, this is a protest move. Overfunctioning is your system's way of saying, don't leave me. Don't let this collapse. It's a fight disguised as competence. Instead of yelling or demanding, you overmanage. It's your nervous system's version of grabbing the steering wheel to keep the relationship on the road. But when one person grips that wheel too tightly, the other person often stops reaching for it at all. And here is where burnout comes in. When you're in constant overdrive, your system never really rests. Physically, that shows up as exhaustion and tension and even illness. Emotionally, it shows up as resentment or distance and frustration because you're giving at a pace that you cannot sustain. Meanwhile, your partner's nervous system often feels pushed away or criticized. They start to believe, I can't get it right, so why even try? That's the deadly combination. One person is doing more and more, and the other person is doing less and less, until both feel so disconnected that it starts to impact the relationship. Quick pause here, because what we're talking about in this episode is often part of a larger pattern. One partner starts trying harder to hold the relationship together, the other partner starts pulling back, and both nervous systems end up feeling more and more overwhelmed. If that dynamic feels familiar, I made something that might help. It's a free 10-minute training called Why Love Feels Like Too Much, where I explain the cycle that escalates both partners, and a short nervous system reset that can help you interrupt the spiral before it turns into another painful fight. You can find it at the link in the show notes. Think about a three-legged race. Imagine strapping yourself to another person and then deciding that you're going to run both halves. At first, you're fast because you're in control, but eventually your legs give out and you collapse. Overfunctioning is just like that. At first, it feels efficient, but it always ends up with somebody face down in the dirt. So let's imagine these two different scenarios, because the way overfunctioning is handled changes everything. On one hand, nothing shifts. You keep doing more and more, tracking every detail, calming every storm, making sure the relationship doesn't fall apart. At first, it works. Things run smoothly because you're carrying it all. But eventually, your body and your heart reach a breaking point. You're exhausted and resentful, and secretly, you're wondering if you're better off alone than feeling invisible. And here's the fallout. Your partner feels that too. They sense your simmering frustration, but instead of leaning in, they back off. The more you carry, the less they believe there is room for them to contribute. They either retreat into helplessness or push back in defensiveness. Either way, the result is the same. Two people further apart. The ick starts to set in. That creeping sense that closeness actually feels impossible, and everything about your partner grates on your nerves. I have seen so many clients where this is the exact scenario. Somebody is doing way more, the other person ends up doing way less. They think it's about the chores, but as we start to dig into it, it's actually much more extensive than that. They're looking at every expression their partner makes, they're anticipating every negative emotion, and they're trying to smooth things over before it ever comes up. And when that happens, the partner feels belittled, like they're not needed or necessary, and they feel the overfunctioning partner pull away and just constantly be angry with them. So what do? They pull away too. Sometimes they get angry and they push back, but often they just settle into the zone of, I'm not enough, I'm helpless and powerless, and they just let it wash over them. So by the time they show up in my office, there have been years and years of this pattern there, and so much resentment that it can be explosive in the room. And so by the time they come into my office, often they're wondering if this is even a relationship that they can sustain. Now, let's look at handling overfunctioning in a different way. Instead of silently taking on 150% of the load, you start to notice the urge to overmanage and pause. Maybe you just decide to stop spinning one of the plates. Maybe you let a reminder go unsaid. It feels really uncomfortable at first, like everything's going to come crashing down. But over time, that pause actually creates the space for your partner to step forward. Here's the other piece. You can actually notice it with your partner. You can actually tell your partner, I feel like I need to take care of all of this, but I need help here. Or like my husband does with me now, he can let me know, hey, it seems like you're trying to fix this for me. I need you to let me figure this out on my own. Here's the contrast. On the first path, burnout builds until the relationship starts to feel really brittle. On the second path, the responsibility starts to shift back into balance. You're no longer running both halves of that race. you're actually starting to move together. So this doesn't mean that it's perfect or effortless. It means that there's room for repair, for closeness, for both partners to feel like they matter. And that's the difference that often determines whether a relationship collapses or if it heals. So what do you do if you recognize yourself in this pattern? Because it's one thing to understand that overfunctioning is burning you out, and it's a completely different thing to actually entirely stop. The urge to manage, track, and fix doesn't disappear just because you know it's exhausting you. I know this all too well. It's wired into your nervous system, which means the shift has to be simple and doable and grounded. So, first step, notice the urge before you act on it. When you feel pulled to remind, to plan, to jump in, just pause and ask yourself, am I doing this to genuinely move us forward? Or am I doing this to soothe my own anxiety? That one moment of honesty slows that automatic cycle and actually gives you a choice. The second step is set boundaries on your own energy. Overfunctioners often treat their capacity like an endless well, but it's not. Choosing one area of the relationship you're willing to step back from can mean the difference between overexhausting yourself and being able to stay present. So maybe you stop scheduling every appointment or you stop cushioning every mood. It's going to feel uncomfortable at first, like you're waiting for disaster. But discomfort is not danger. It's simply your body learning a new way. And finally, practice leaving space. Instead of rushing to fix it, ask, what do you think? Or how do you want to handle this? These small shifts create openings for reciprocity. You don't have to overhaul everything all at once. Even choosing one moment a day to pause instead of jumping in is a huge win. Over time, those pauses add up and start to create balance. So here's my takeaway. You don't have to stop overfunctioning overnight. You just have to start noticing when it's happening. Choose one place to step back and let that discomfort be your teacher instead of seeing it as your enemy. That's how you start to retrain your system to trust that you don't have to carry it all. That's how you come home to yourself. Overfunctioning may look like strength on the outside, but inside it's a nervous system strategy that will eventually wear you down. What starts as care and competence slowly erodes to exhaustion, resentment, and disconnection. And in relationships, burnout isn't just about being tired. It's often the place where people hit the wall and wonder if this love is even possible anymore. So one path, you keep carrying more than your share and the relationship gets heavier until it feels unfixable. And on the other path, you start to notice the urge. Then you step back even a little and make space for balance. It's the same dynamic with two radically different outcomes. One ends in collapse, the other creates space for repair and closeness. So let's be honest, this work isn't easy. If you've been a fixer your whole life, stepping back actually feels like abandoning your post. Your nervous system will fight you on this, but you are not broken for falling into this pattern. You learned it for a really important reason, and you've practiced it for a very long time. Change doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you're finally giving yourself permission to rest. So if you see yourself in this episode, allow it to be a turning point. Overfunctioning doesn't have to define your love story. Burnout doesn't have to be the end. When you treat exhaustion as the signal that it really is, you open the door to something different, to connection that feels mutual, to love that feels sustainable. And that's the deeper work. And that's what I work with my clients on. So it's about turning awareness into practice. And remember, you don't have to keep carrying it all. You are not unlovable for needing a break. You're human, and your exhaustion isn't proof of weakness. It's your body's way of saying it's time to come home to yourself. If you want the guided version of this work, my private audio series is linked in the show notes. You can start anytime. That's it for today's episode of Coupled With. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe so you never miss what's next. And if you found it helpful, please share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review. It really helps more than you know. And if you're curious about how we might work together or want more resources to strengthen your relationship, head over to my website, www.drrachelorlick.com. You'll find free tools, podcast extras, and ways to go deeper. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.